Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Lookout live stream. Today is the 12th of July, and we're going to talk about the Palisades Fire and Eaton fires in Southern California. We're also going to talk about what happens after a fire with the cleanup process, and we're also going to talk about mental health, both for first responders, second responders, and the general public, and how to survive the long battle of mental health. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Zeke Lunder. This is the Lookout channel. We cover fire, forestry, prescribed fire, and land management from Chico, California. I've been working in wildland fire since 1995 and in fire mapping and technology since 1999. I started a company in 2011 to do mapping on fires after doing that for the previous 10 years for another contractor. And so I want to talk a little bit after we visit the fires here just about our experience with disasters like this and some things we've learned about the long slog of working through something like this. I think we want to start off with the good news, which is that the fires are pretty much out. Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire both are they're pretty much out. And so we recognize that there's still lots of wild weather and winds, but there's been a huge amount of work done on these fires in the last couple of days, and they're really showing very little heat, no real new growth. And so we're just going to look at them a little bit and talk about that. We're going to check out some other. This is fresh satellite imagery that dropped today at noon. We've got kind of both infrared and regular imagery of it. And so we'll go through these fires, and then we'll jump into the next topic. So as you'd expect in a wind-driven fire in an area that hasn't burned for a long time, that has a lot of vegetation, these fires burned with relatively uniform high severity. The pink and red imagery in here shows that pretty much places where there's no living vegetation. You can see that down in the canyon bottoms, there's still quite a bit of living canopy. This often happens in the riparian zones, just for a variety of reasons. But that is good news from kind of a ecosystem health perspective, is that when you still have large wood and riparian and living trees down in the bottom, it can help to mitigate some of the wild runoff hazards post-fire. But as you move down the coast, you can see that there's a lot of hot burn here. Hot burn just means that it looks like it looks a bit like the moon. The vegetation's gone. So we'll flick back and forth. This is kind of the true color image, and then this is the infrared image. So the red areas are just areas that burned hot. Has nothing to do with the if there's fire or heat there anymore. It just is showing where the edge of the fire is. And then you can see here at the north end at Malibu, we've got a red line here that's the border of the fire. I'm going to change that color to be something a little easier to see. Did that do it? Did it just disappear? There we go. Okay, so the white line's the perimeter as mapped last night of the Palisades Fire, and then you can see here where it bumped into the Franklin Fire, which also burned hot. And that's why the fire stopped basically when it got to the Palisades, when the Palisades Fire got to the Franklin Fire from earlier this fall. It basically just wrapped around it. So as we come all the way around the back edge, last night we were worried about the part of the fire that slopped over towards Sylvia Park, and whether or not these fires would spread over the mountains and down to the San Fernando Valley. And what we can see looking at the imagery here, the true color imagery, is their firing operations held all the way along the ridge, and where they did have the slop over that we talked about last night, where the fire got over their dozer line and burned out, they just completely soaked it in retardant. So you can see that red retardant line. They just, there's no other fires going on anywhere else in the country right now, really. And so they had every large air tanker that's available at their disposal. And so they painted this fire, and this fire is done here. They've also, after they cooled it down with air tankers, they got in there with hand crews, and they've put hose lays along this entire section, and they've used those hose lays to mop up all the residual heat. So the good news there is just that it's really easy for them to patrol the dozer line that they fired, and that's all out. And then and it's a lot easier for them to mop up along the dozer line where they can just drive and have water tenders and trucks. And then this area where they had to go off into the brush, that's all got hose lays now and water pumped and mopped up. So sounds like this fire is pretty wrapped. You can also see over here in Mandeville Canyon a huge amount of retardant that was applied along the kind of lower edge. Fire did not make it down into Mandeville Canyon to where the structures were. We don't have real detailed information on exactly what if structures were lost in Mandeville Canyon, but you can see that most of the places that it shows that there's structures, they're outside of that fire line. The exception might be a couple that are kind of tucked in deep in the brush. So a huge number of structures here were protected in Topanga Canyon, Old Topanga, Topanga Oaks. All right. We're going to jump over to the Eaton fire. We've got the fire history layer on here. Also with Eaton today, the satellites are really showing very little heat, like some heat deep in the interior of the fire. But there's been real no spread on the Eaton. This fire is a little more interesting from a ecological effects. You can see the kind of damage in the burned urban area. You can see that a lot of the street trees survived up here in this this upper portion, and then down where the fire's main push went, there's a lot less kind of living foliage. Like some of these areas here, kind of north of the Altadena Golf Course, a lot of the street trees appear to have survived off of kind of East Altadena Drive. Then up in the hills, in the lower areas in the chaparral, you see that it did burn hot, just like the other one, with the pinks and reds showing areas where all the vegetation's killed. And then a lot of the kind of more kind of protected slopes, with we had the north winds blowing over the tops of the mountains. And in the leeward side of the ridge, you would have kind of eddies in that wind. And so a lot of the oaks and other vegetation in these kind of dense or steep and deep higher elevation canyons did survive. So when you see, a fire shape on the map, often it looks like this big solid blob, and you might assume that everything in there is destroyed, but oftentimes a lot of vegetation survives within burns just because of the time that the fire burned or where it started or where it backed through. So we have a wide variety of effects that each fire will have on the vegetation. So we call that the mosaic. And so that's your kind of view of Eaton for fire severity. These images are from the European Space Agency, ESA, and they're actually free to the public it's called the Sentinel program. One thing that happened on this fire is this fire kind of burned and was done before there was, it kind of burned the ridges, and there wasn't a lot of direct firefighting that happened until the fire was kind of up at the ridges. So we don't see like big heavy retardant lines the same as we do on the other fire for most of the perimeter of this, just because a lot of places the fire really kind of burned to a ridge and kind of was done. So one thing I want to mention just right now regarding the live stream is we've set up memberships. We turned off the live chat just because it was getting super wackadoodle with how much really just gnarly politics was coming up in there. So we've got memberships now at 3 different levels, and if you become a member, you can be part of the chat, and that's kind of our way of filtering out people that don't support the program, that just are here to cause trouble. So if you want to be part of the chat, you can become a monthly member. We got 3 levels. The first gives you the ability to chat. The second one, members will get, I'll make a few videos a month that are just for members. And then the third level is what I'm calling the Lookout Wildfire Academy. And that'll be a monthly 1-hour live stream just with members where we'll pick a topic and it'll be kind of an interactive teaching session. So it's a way you can support the Lookout and become involved, stay involved with what we're doing, and also a way just for us to filter through the gnarliness of unfiltered YouTube. And if you don't want to be a member but still follow us, subscribe here on YouTube, because having more members helps us get more traffic, and then you also hear about what we got going on. So thanks for coming along with that. Okay, so that's the nuts and bolts of the fires. We talked a bit about dozer lines and how you go indirect, and how sometimes you have to go direct on the fire, right up to the fire's edge. And we'll continue to talk. That's stuff that we talk about a lot here. But now I want to talk about kind of the heavier stuff, the more social science stuff. And that is talking about dealing with this trauma and mental health in the midst of these things. You zoom out on the landscape and you look at all these fires. And all of these fires have a story. Every single one of these, people had to go out and dig a ditch around it. But when you look at that entire landscape, you think of all the homes affected and all the people that did the work and everything else. Like this wildfire reality that we live in, these are the fires from the last 20 years in California, starting in 2000. Right. And so living in this fire landscape, like this trauma is kind of baked in, this exposure to the loss. And I've been working in, so this image, kind of the beginning of it coincides with the beginning of my career. And we've worked on a lot of these. And so there's just been such a wide variety of ways that people have been affected by fire and the ways that we react. And so I want to talk a bit about that, and just also about some things we've learned that kind of maybe can help people understand what's going to happen next. The campfire burned Paradise in 2018, and it really just wiped the town of Paradise off the map. And so I'm telling this story because this story is kind of, it gives you a little understanding of what's going to happen now in Palisades, what's going to happen in the Eaton fire. And there's kind of these lessons learned that are cascading from fire to fire. The Tubbs fire in 2017 burned up Santa Rosa. And so when we started working on the recovery efforts of the campfire in 2018, there was a whole team of people from Sonoma County that came over here to run kind of what we'd call an incident command team, just to help maintain the function of the local government. Because Paradise had no infrastructure really left after the fire. There was, the town hall was still standing, but there was no power, and there was nowhere to get food, and there was no gas, and there was no just power on the ridge. Yet they still had to function and figure out how to rebuild. So this image here is now 2024, and if you look at it from, let's just go back to 2016 here. I'm trying to pull up an image. This is what Paradise looked like before the campfire. Trees everywhere, tons of people, a whole community built in the Sierra Nevada foothills. And then you fast forward to 2019, and this is what it looked like. Just burnt sticks, and you don't see a lot of cleanup going on here, right? This is almost a year after the fire. August of this is December, of 2018. And there's no cleanup going on yet. This is a month after the fire. And this is, what the Eaton fire is going to look like, Palisades fire. It takes a while for the whole machines of cleanup to get moving. There's going to be big contracts issued. There's going to be national contractors. that are awarded kind of hazardous waste survey contracts. There's this incredible bureaucracy now that's been built around post-fire cleanup. Because before this can get certified, this lot can get certified for as safe to rebuild, like they had to come and they have to haul away the burnt home. They have to test the soil. If they find any contaminants, they have to take more soil away. And they also have to track all this wreckage and make sure it's being dumped it's not just getting hauled out in the woods and dumped somewhere. Like every single truckload of hazardous waste coming out of here had to be accounted for and tracked and followed, documented that it actually went to a hazardous waste landfill. Okay, and so then you jump forward a year and you see that all that stuff's been cleared. Like $2 billion of public money spent through FEMA and Cal Recycle to pay contractors to clean up the ridge, right? But basically what ended up happening is the ridge got scraped and huge amount of dirt hauled and everything else. But this all takes a long time, and at the same time there was tree cleanup. You see here, there's all the standing dead trees are gone. That was another huge contract. A company got paid $65 million just to manage the tree cleanup, not even to cut the trees or haul them or anything else, just to come out and barcode every single tree. And because FEMA, with hurricanes and everything they've found in the past, they pay contractors to get rid of trees, and then the contractors go and sell the trees at a sawmill or something, and then that's corruption, right? So now in Paradise, so you drive around, there's a barcode on every single stump. So there's this huge kind of disaster capitalism that's now built around this, that the industry kind of started with Katrina, or even earlier with cleaning up hurricanes. These big national environmental companies like Tetra Tech got involved in this and figured out the game, and now this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, is cleaning up disasters. And the same thing kind of has happened in Lahaina. But so it's this evolving thing. But what we know is just that it takes a long time for the bureaucracy of cleanup to really engage, and then before you can go out and look at your lot, in a lot of cases before you could start even the cleanup, they had to come around and do an initial survey to make sure that you didn't have leaking drums of hazardous waste that were in your shop that burned, that you didn't have propane tanks out there that were leaking, etc. So what's going to happen now is this really kind of complex bureaucratic response that's going to involve a lot of different steps and regulation and hurdles. In Paradise, rightly so, people wanted to come back and live on their trailers on their land while they got the cleanup done. Most of the cleanup was covered by FEMA, but if you want to do it yourself and get it done quicker, you can do that, but you have to hire a contractor that's licensed to handle hazardous waste. So that it's just the beginning of a really long, difficult, bureaucratic process, and fighting with insurance companies and lawsuits over, here PG&E was found to have started the fire, but it's taken over half a decade for people to get settlement money from PG&E. So it's a long, painful, difficult process. And that's going to be what happens in Southern California. So now, 6 years later, Paradise is largely rebuilt. By no means as dense as it was before, but there's a lot of homes now that have been built out here in the Campfire Scar. It's a very different place. It used to be shady and cool and kind of cozy and woodsy, and now it's kind of windswept and hot and dusty and just very, very different. So as I said, this map we were looking at kind of tracks my career with fire in Northern California. And about a decade ago, things really started to change in Fireland. Previous to, say, 2014, we just hadn't been on many urban interface disasters. I'd been on the Cedar Fire in 2003, and that burned 4,000 structures and killed 16 people. And that was one of those ones where you say, like, wow, things are really going to change now. Like, how could things not change after something like that? And a lot of it didn't change as far as how we rebuilt, how people perceived the threat, everything else. 2014, we went to a fire in Weed, California, the Bulls Fire, that burned maybe 100 homes. It burned right through the town. This is the Bulls Fire here. Another just fast moving. It happened in the course of an hour and a half or two. And we went and we worked and we helped on the mapping with that. But we were kind of insulated from that. I didn't even actually go into town. I just was like at a, fairgrounds in Wairika. And then it just started to come one after another. 2015, so 2014 Bulls Fire burned up Weed. 2015, the Valley Fire burned up the town of Middletown. And that was, a true large-scale urban interface disaster. Over here by Clear Lake. Burned the whole town of Middletown, burned Hidden Valley Lake. And I showed up on this fire the day after it started, and I was driving through Clear Lake, and I just saw like some people on the side of the road. You could just tell when people lost everything, and they like had a newborn baby, and they were sitting on a picnic table in the smoke, just looking lost. And that's when it like really started to hit me that what we were part of working on responding to these things. For the first decade of my career, we just like you'd go to a big fire, you'd help make the maps. It wouldn't really it'd burn out in the brush somewhere. Be a lot of high fives. You'd see your friends. It was burning a bunch of brush. It was not that big a deal, and it was kind of fun. But 10 years ago, it started to get real. Burning up Middletown, burning up Santa Rosa. Tubbs Fire burned right into Santa Rosa. Destroyed thousands of homes here, destroyed the entire Coffee Park neighborhood. And then campfire, you're like, well, how could it get worse than a campfire? Burned like 15,000 homes, over 20,000 structures. And then it hit me, I worked in the campfire all winter, and we were doing kind of erosion control and trying to keep the burnt homes and all that wreckage from like going in the creeks and poisoning the creeks that like my kids swim in. And about halfway through that, I just kind of like one night went into a rage, and I just started throwing stuff around my house. And I was like, man, I need help. And luckily, I had some friends that are kind of experts in this. And so I just want to talk now about like what has been learned by people in my industry about dealing with this kind of trauma. Like I said, over the last 10 years, things have just really accelerated with the pace of disaster with these large fires. And the mental health impacts on the first responders have been severe. And CAL FIRE really started investing in peer support. They recognized that if they didn't take care of the mental health of their firefighters, that they wouldn't have a workforce. It was that severe. And when I started my career, or 20 years ago, PTSD was not really something that people wanted to talk about. I worked with a lot of Vietnam vets who were the kind of leadership of the company I worked for, and they all had real challenges. And I kind of chalked it up to like them being in Vietnam, and then I realized like, oh, these guys, in addition to being wildland firefighters, they spend their careers like helping cut people out of car wrecks and everything else. But it wasn't a topic of discussion. But in the last 10 years, it has been. And now it's really common when I talk to firefighters, like we'll talk about therapy. We'll talk about like what they've been doing. We'll talk about we talk more about how these things influence us. There's a lot of suicide in our industry, and we have to talk about it. And so I talked to a good friend tonight before I came on, and I was just trying to figure out what we were going to talk about. It's like, the fire's out. There's not a lot to talk about there. But a friend of mine, Todd Tuggle, he's the chief of the San Luis Obispo Fire Department, and we kind of came up through mapping on these fires, and then he ended up being kind of a planning section leader in the fire industry, and then now he's a chief of a department. And so he said, the way that he likes to explain PTSD is that your mind can't process what you're seeing. And that's what's going to happen to all of you who are evacuated when you go back to your place. And because your mind can't figure out how to make sense of it, it just kind of spins. And that just drives you crazy. That's what leads to the PTSD and to the depression and to the rage and the bad things that come. And the sooner that you can kind of get help with figuring out a narrative for what you're seeing and how you feel, the sooner that you can stop spinning. So I was thinking, we're getting all the satellite imagery now, and it shows the burnt town, and you see all the foundations and the wreckage and everything, and it's like you don't have to really look at that too many times to get the picture. And I think with what we learned with 9/11 is that all of us watching the airplanes hit the towers over and over and over, like that just seared those things into our minds, and that we couldn't make sense of that. And so we have this collective now experience around that, but it didn't do us any good. And it was good that eventually the TV stations just stopped playing that. And now you don't see that much at all, that video, unless you go looking for it. But it's the same thing with watching endless videos of someone, riding their motorcycle through the ruins of Pacific Palisades. You don't have to subject yourself to that. And it's going to be a long time now to any sense of normalcy of what used to be with your house and everything else. Another thing that Todd brought up when I was talking to him is just that resilience is super powerful. And that involves staying healthy, being fit, having a routine. And that if you're hungover, if you're, out of shape, if you're just kind of moping around, it's that much harder to kind of stay positive, to maintain a routine. And that, things like drinking water, things like get off your phone and go for a walk, super important to maintain that kind of emotional resilience. One thing we talked about when I was talking to Todd is just like, there's bad things happening every day all over the world. And, in places like Gaza and places like the Ukraine. And we often are relatively insulated from the hardship here in America. But right now, all of us are going to be subjected to the aftermath of what looks like a war zone. And that's really hard. We don't have the tools to deal with that, and no one does. But talking to people early on. So for me, after I kind of had my rage and realized that I had, that I was reacting with PTSD to being in the devastation of paradise for months in the rain, therapy really helped. Getting someone I could talk to soon really helped me turn a corner. It took a while. I was pretty much in a anxiety attack for the entire year of 2019, and I didn't realize it. I thought I was dying. I was dizzy all the time. And so if you feel this, if you are going through this now and then you feel like you're getting dizzy, you can't, you feel off, realize that a lot of that, what I figured out eventually is my neck was super tight from just being so freaking wound up about this stuff. Physically, that stuff, anxiety takes you down. And then you're anxious that you're having a heart attack and everything else. So if you're feeling off, if you feel like you're dizzy all the time, feel like you're dying, know that very likely it's just from this acute level of stress in your body. And getting help and talking to people and walking really helps with all that. And that unlike people who are living in Gaza or Ukraine, there's some comfort that we can have in knowing that relief will come. That there's a lot of people that are going to be working to help resolve, to help everyone get over this. So that's just pretty much what I wanted to say, was that the fire's hopefully done. Hopefully we don't have new fires right away with the continued Santa Anas. But in this space where we're go from being critically afraid that the fire's going to burn us next, we have to kind of shift gears and process what just happened. The other thing I was thinking of on that tip is just that be nice. Be nice to people. Everyone needs to be nice. And that what we're seeing right now with all the news and the kind of spin of this and the politicization of it is the opposite of that. absolutely not helpful. And the blame is super common response to trauma. Understand it. And everyone wants to blame someone. There's, as we've talked about on here, there's so many different layers of who to blame, right? So breathe through it. I'm going to answer some questions here. I'm going to take a breath, drink some water. But I just wanted to share that it's going to be a long time. It's going to be really complicated. Things will never be the same. And got to take care of ourselves. Got to take care of each other. During the campfire, there were a lot of people in town giving free massages, doing free acupuncture, doing chiropractic, therapy animals. That stuff's great. You know, if you have therapy dogs and you're not already down there, I've been in fire camps before where people brought therapy dogs in, and there was no one in like the incident command post that pet those dogs that wasn't crying. It's super, super, super useful. So if you got skills like that to share, please do. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to bring up, see what's going on in the chat. There we go. Okay, we got some members. Uncle Buck's Hat is a member. Ann Porter, Tegan Lee, Dex Dark. Thanks, Ann. She says that it calmed her nerves. We appreciate you thanking us for that. Dex Stark, thanks for the work. Tegan, can you share topics for the top tier as they're decided, please? I can't afford to spark that level every month, but I might be able to upgrade for a single month for a particular topic. Yeah, we'll do that. And we'll put them up on the community posts for the YouTube channel, and then we'll also put it out on Twitter/X, where we're still active as Wildland ZKO. Keith Evans. Thank you, Keith, for joining. Thanks, Ann. Mike Murphy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Carrie Main. Ann Porter says, my son's employment is part of the hard part after the fires are out, restoring power outages. I encourage my son to protect his mental health on the job. So important. I've got a friend who's a lineman. First in, you know, those folks are in, they're in putting up transformers and fixing power poles when the houses are still smoking. And, you know, while the fire industry has made these great strides in peer support programs and providing counseling and everything, a lot of the other industries have not got there. And especially the ones that don't have unions, but in general, a lot of them don't. And I think what I'd encourage everyone, what I would tell everyone based on my experience is I worked in the planning section on fires. And so we were usually in the fairgrounds. Like sometimes we could see the fire, but unless we like drove out and looked at the fire, our job put us in like a trailer with like, if we had windows, we were glad. But we were removed from the action. And so for years, we didn't really consider ourselves to be first responders. We kind of felt like, well, we're just kind of the techies behind the scenes. And then eventually we realized that, like, no, we're in this, like, we're part of a team that's dealing with trauma. And we drove around the state to every kind of major catastrophe. And it affected us. And so, yeah, the linemen, the food workers, the mechanics, like everyone who has to drive into that every day. Later it'll be the cleanup workers. They're all going through the same things. They might not be fearing for their life, but they are, they're affected like everyone else. Alexander OC, welcome to the chat. Well, thank you guys for joining. Mary Quart, I miss you. Mary Quart is legendary wildland fire manager, Alaskan firefighter. Mary, we miss you. appreciate you a lot. Thank you for becoming a member. And give me a call, please. I don't really want to draw this out too long. I feel like I said what I want to say. We'll keep doing these. We appreciate all the support. We've gotten donations from a bunch of you guys to keep this going. Really appreciate it. It makes us feel good about our stuff. It makes us feel good about what we're doing. Topics for the Lookout Academy. It's going to be fire history, fire ecology. We're going to talk about prescribed burning. If you have suggestions for things you would like us to copy, there's going to be quite a bit of leeway when we do these for the people who join as members to ask, hey, can we talk about where I live? Can we talk about Nevada City? So it'll be kind of like a group consultation. Someone asked the other day, I made a passing comment about Nevada City, and I think I said I wouldn't want to live there, and they said, well, why not? And so that'll be a topic for discussion of, when we talk about the difficulty in creating wildfire resilience, and also the hazards of living in a place that hasn't burned for a long time. This whole area hasn't burned for a long time. We'll talk about being fire literate. We'll talk about maybe good places to buy a house or not to buy a house. We'll talk about insurance. It's just going to be kind of an ongoing conversation about where we're at with wildfire. Well, I got this open here. Check this out. Random topic, but if you go down to Wheatland and you drive out into the towards the Air Force Base, this is paradise. This is the toxic waste dump outside the Air Force Base in Beale, where they dumped all the dirty dirt from Paradise. You can't tell on here, but it's a frickin' mountain, giant mountain of red dirt. That red dirt's from Paradise. All right, Dex Dark says, please cover the causes of the fires, and we will, but we don't speculate, so we're going to wait for the reports to come out and for the actual stuff to filter down. We're putting all of our live streams on the Lookout. You'll come up and if you get on there later, if you want more context with the live stream, you get on the Lookout and you'll see we'll have a report. We'll have the actual live stream. Usually we'll have some more detailed maps. And then I'm using a robot to summarize what we talked about because I'm not a very good typist. So make sure you check it out. Also, the free version of the Lookout Academy is just to come in here and read our archives on all these different topics related to wildfire. Aloha, Milton. Welcome to Lookout members. And while you're there, you could become a subscriber on PayPal. It's another way you can support us. And you can check out our sponsor, QTAC. They make fire equipment here in Chico, California. And we're glad to have their sponsorship. So if you're interested in stuff they make, go on our website, jump the link to QTAC. And that's the story. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we'll see you again tomorrow night. Bye, everyone. Yeah, welcome to Lookout members. See you, everyone.